I never thought I'd see flashing police lights in front of the HOA president's house. Not in our perfectly trimmed picture-per-hood neighborhood, where the grass is measured like it's part of a science experiment and trash cans have a strict wearer outdoor limit. But that afternoon, as I stood there watching the HOA queen's daughter being placed in the back of a squad car, I realized something important. Some people confuse neighborhood authority with actual power. Let me explain how this whole mess started. I live in a quiet suburban community that looks peaceful on the outside. Clean sidewalks, identical mailboxes, fresh mulch every spring. But if you've ever lived under a strict HOA, you know how it really feels. Every month there's a new rule. Every week there's a warning email. And at the center of it all was our HOA president. The kind of person who treated the bylaws like royal decrees. She had a reputation. Finding people for having their garage open too long. Sending violation letters because someone's holiday lights were too colorful once. She actually measured someone's lawn and left a note. Because it was a model 4 in over-regulation height. Nobody wanted problems with her and she knew it. Now I own an ATV. It's not some giant monster machine, just a well-maintained legal registered ATV that I use for trail riding on weekends and small yard projects. I keep it covered beside my garage on my property. It's clean. It's quiet. It doesn't bother anyone except her. She'd complained about it multiple times, saying it lowered the aesthetic standard of the neighborhood. I reminded her politely that it was allowed under the HO guidelines as long as it was covered and not operated recklessly, which it wasn't. She didn't like being told she was wrong. After that, I noticed more random inspections happening around my house. Emails about minor things, petty stuff. It felt personal. Then came the Saturday that changed everything. I had been out running errands for a few hours. When I pulled into my driveway, something immediately felt off. The cover that's always neatly secured over my ATV was missing. I walked closer. The ATV was gone. For a second, I just stood there staring at the empty space. I checked my garage. Nothing. I walked around the house. Nothing. My stomach dropped. Before I could even process what was happening, my phone buzzed. It was my neighbor. "Hey, isn't that your TV? Emily's riding it around the cul-de-sac." Emily, the HO president's 19-year-old daughter. I walked down the sidewalk toward the main street, and sure enough, there she was laughing. Speeding in circles, showing off for a couple of her friends on my ATV. She wasn't just sitting on it. She was tearing up the road like it belonged to her. I waited until she pulled back into her driveway. I wasn't yelling. I wasn't aggressive. I just walked up calmly and said, "That's my ATV. Why do you have it?" She looked at me like I was the inconvenience. "Oh, this. It was just sitting there," she said. "Mom said. It's basically an eyesore." Anyway, I told her she didn't have permission to take it, that it was private property. She actually laughed. "You can't do anything," she said. "My mom runs this neighborhood." That sentence right there told me everything I needed to know. She genuinely believed there would be no consequences. So, I pulled out my phone and called the police. Within minutes, her mom stormed outside like I'd committed some kind of crime by dialing 3 numbers. She was furious. "How dare you escalate this?" she yelled. "This is a neighborhood issue." I calmly explained that her daughter had taken my registered motor vehicle without permission. She tried to spin it as a misunderstanding. Said it was just borrowing. Said it was left accessible, as if that somehow meant it was public property. When the police arrived, things got real. The officer asked Emily directly if she had permission to take the ATV. She hesitated, looked at her mom, then back at the officer. Karen tried to interrupt, saying they would handle it internally. The officer shut that down immediately. He explained clearly that HOA authority does not override state law. Taking someone's motor vehicle without permission qualifies as theft or unauthorized use, regardless of who your parent is. The confidence drained from Emily's face. Then came the twist neither of them expected. My neighbor across the street had security cameras, and he had already pulled the footage. It showed Emily and one of her friends earlier that they walking onto my property, removing the cover, and pushing the ATV down the driveway before starting it up. It wasn't a misunderstanding. It wasn't borrowing. It was deliberate. The officer reviewed the footage right there on the neighbor's phone. There wasn't much left to argue. And that's when the handcuffs came out. Karen went from confident to panicked in seconds. She started shouting about reputation lawsuits, knowing people at City Hall. But none of it mattered. The law doesn't bend for a presidents. Watching Emily sit in the back of that patrol car was surreal. The same person who said, "I couldn't do anything," was now staring straight ahead, silent. The squad car drove off, and for the first time since I'd moved there, the neighborhood felt quiet in a different way. Word spread fast. Within days, people were talking openly about past incidents, selective enforcement, harassment, fines that didn't follow procedure. Turns out I wasn't the only one who'd been dealing with intimidation. A few weeks later, Karen resigned as HOA president. Apparently, once people realized she didn't have the power she pretended to have, they stopped being afraid. Several neighbors pushed for an audit of previous fines and enforcement actions. As for Emily, she ended up facing charges for unauthorized use of a motor vehicle. There were fines, community service, a record she'd have to explain for years, all over something she thought she could get away with. The irony is, if she had just asked, I probably would have let her take a supervised ride sometime. I'm not unreasonable, but entitlement changes everything. When someone believes rules don't apply to them, they stop thinking about consequences. And sometimes consequences show up with flashing lights. Looking back, I don't feel victorious. I feel validated. There's a difference. I didn't want revenge. I wanted respect for my property. And I wanted it to be clear that no one, no matter their title, is above the law. If you've ever dealt with an overreaching HOA, or someone who thought they were untouchable, you know exactly how satisfying it is to see accountability finally happen. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more real-life HOA drama and neighborhood stories. And I'm curious, where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. I read them all. Trust me, you won't believe what happened in my neighborhood.